take notice of
Scott,
this
come up here.
And Becca, you need to come on over here.
I'm dragging.
Mom, you need to come on up. So it is an exciting time for them to be graduates, so I'm going to let them talk a little bit, and I'm going to ask them what they're doing and where they're going to be going. And so I'm going to start off with you, Jeremy. You're up first. Tell us, Jeremy, what are you going to do now that you're graduated?
I'm probably going to go to Frostburg, but before that, I'm going to get a lot of sleeping in.
All right. And what are you going to study at Frostburg?
I'm going to go into either neurology or virology.
Oh. All right, so he's going to work on your brain and work on the chemicals that kill your brain. That's what is going to happen. Jeremy's doing very well. He's pretty much got good scholarships to go to Frostburg and is doing a fantastic job. Did an excellent job in high school, which is fantastic. Jeremy has a very bright future ahead of him, and we just want to thank you for this excellent young man. All right, Mr. Sedgwick. You look like you did. Andrew, what are you going to be doing next?
I'm going to be working this summer and then going to Chesapeake this fall.
Okay, what are you going to study?
Finance.
Finance. He's going to give me an accountant or a finance manager?
Finance.
All right, he's going to make all the money, okay? That's what we need to do. Everybody go see it. Andrew, he's the one who's going to make all your money for you. So, that right there. All right, Becca. What are you going to be doing? Okay, don't speak up. Come on. I know you got a big mouth. Come on.
Getting a job and going to Deltech to be a social worker.
All right, so Jeremy's going to create the chemicals to save us, Andrew's going to finance us, and Becca's going to help all of us who are in trouble. Amen? So that kind of thing. Now, I will tell you that Joshua, who's not here, obviously they're Cookie's going to be going to Waynesburg University. He actually has a full ride there. He's done very well for that part. He's going to become a special ed teacher. And Taylor, she's going to be going off to Washington College. And we actually found out a couple days ago that she's got, what's it, $52,000 a year scholarship to go to Washington College, which pretty much means a full ride. Washington College is one of the most expensive schools around. And so, do you know what she's going to be doing?
Environmentalist.
Say?
She's studying to be a environmentalist.
Okay, all right. Well, she's going to be doing some great things with that. So there's some great pictures back here as they kind of go through. But this is what I want to be able to do. Moms, this is where you get to talk. Okay. I want you to share something deep from the heart about your child. So, spend a couple seconds to think. See, last year I had people write letters, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to do that this year. So, and I should have done this with Shawnee last year, but she was like, didn't break down on me. But, so, who's ready to go first? Before I pick. All right, Beth, go ahead. First, you first. You got to go first.
Okay. Becca, from day one, from the day one she could speak, I should say. You never quite knew when she said something what was going to come out. And we said a long time ago we should have written it down what she said because she said some funny things. But what I have to say about my daughter is I admire my daughter. My daughter has not always dealt with the easiest situations in her life. But she is strong. And I admire that about her, and I know God is going to use the strength that He has given her through life experiences to be able to use it in social work and helping people. She has a compassionate heart, yet she has a tough heart. So I think people who are in need, she can reach out to them in love, but sometimes we need a boost, a kick to get us going, and she can also talk to people about that, which will encourage them to change and become better people and stand strong. So Becca, I love you, and it's hard to believe, and I'm going to cry. She always tells me, pull it together, Mom, pull it together, pull it together. I'm not going to pull it together because from the day you were born, I knew God had great things in store for you. And I'm proud of you as your mother. I'm proud to be called your mother. We don't always get along, and sometimes we're like mother and oil. But we have a strong mother-daughter bond that nothing can break that. And I love you, and I just
can't wait to continue seeing what God's going to do in the world.
All right, amen. All right, Terry, you're up.
You put me on the spot with this. You should rewarn
Don't worry, Dad, you need to stop and think, because you'll be saying
You should
something.
rewarn me on this one. Told him I'm gonna cry, so I couldn't ask for a better son. He has never given me 1 ounce of problems, troubles. He doesn't backtalk. He doesn't, he's a perfect son, that's all I can say about it. And that's the God's honest truth. You couldn't ask for a better kid, good grades in school. He doesn't do anything bad. I don't know how I got through that, but, and you know what, he's a quiet person, but he's got a good heart and definitely a team player. I can see that through all of his baseball years, no matter, he was always the team player. He was the unsung hero there. He was always part of the team and he didn't care. He was there, so I couldn't ask for a better son.
Amen. Amen. Good job.
And he's gonna do good, I mean, he's got that drive and he's gonna do something spectacular with his life, I know it.
All right. Ms. Heather.
Jeremy's awesome. Don't give him the mic, because he'll go on.
Okay.
He likes to talk and cry. He's got a real heart for people that have special needs. And he's, through the years where I've had a daycare, he's kind of fixed some kids out and really done some things with them. And I think that's what's kind of driven him towards the medical field, where he wants to become a neurologist or a neurologist. But, and I mean, even now, he likes to help people a lot. He's done the DPS for years and all that. And he's getting ready, he's in the middle of doing his Eagle Scout project now down at Camp Mardella, where he's putting together some camp pads and creating a whole new campsite for them. So, that's my baby.
Okay. All right. Dad, you don't get away with it either, so I'm so glad. You're up, Jamie. Go ahead. What are you going to say about your boys?
Well, my wife made it easier. I'm just proud of my son. I mean, I've been involved in sports all my life, and Andrew has played, a lot of sports, and, just seeing him grow up as a young man in sports and life itself, he's made me a better coach in person because of things I've learned and things I've actually done wrong coaching him. He's actually made me a better man, and he's just a great kid. I couldn't ask for a better son. I have a great daughter, too.
Don't worry, Ted. You're good. Don't worry.
No, I'm really proud, and I know Pop Herbie would be proud of you, too. So.
That's right.
So you're saying that Taylor was the back kid? That's the point? All right, Jack, you're up.
It's funny. You can ask any parent that has more than one child how they can be so different. It really struck me one year. We had gotten a GameCube for the kids, and I knew that Scott was really into Bionicles, so we got him a Bionicle game that goes on GameCube. And I was watching Scott play it, and there's kind of this part where there was a river, and there was a scorpion that shot fire out of its tail. And I saw Scott trying to go at it different ways, and it just kept zapping it. And finally, after about 10 or 15 minutes, Scott gave up. He'd had enough of it. So he went into another room doing something. I'm sitting there, I was reading or something, and about 5 minutes later, here comes Jeremy. Now, Jeremy, of course, is quite a bit younger than Scott. And he was probably about 10 or 11 at the time. Jeremy comes in, oh, cool Bionicles game. And he sits down, and I'm watching to see how he's going to handle it when he gets to that point with the scorpion. He got to the point. Jeremy runs through the stream or river, kills the scorpion, goes around to another, comes back, another scorpion, kills that one. He ended up killing the thing like 4 times just playing with it. Jeremy has a mind where quickly he can identify a situation and get through it.
That's good.
And that's a very valuable thing in life. Now, Scott is more of the creative. he would have done an artistic interpretation of the scorpion. But Jeremy's the one that goes in and slays the scorpion. In life, there are times where sometimes Jeremy gets a little laid back, maybe he gets that part from me. But there are times where you just got to buckle down and get through things. I know that Jeremy is very intelligent. I know that if he puts his mind to something, there's nothing that stands in his way. I just hope he remembers that when he gets college.
I guess I get to talk now. All right. Her mom already kind of said, I want to point out that my relationship with Becca is absolutely fantastic. When mom and daughter have their mom and daughter moments, but father and daughter, we do great, don't we? But my daughter has endured some things in the last few years, and things which I'm just, I don't need to share, but she's endured some things and she's overcome them. She has this wonderful, tough spirit about her. She is about as English as she can get. She certainly is more like me in personality, looks like me. I found out recently, my grandmother in her younger days looks just back as a spin image of her. But she has such a wonderful, compassionate side of her. But I'm going to tell you, the story of my Becca is this. And I'm going to embarrass her thoroughly. When she was about 3 years old, we had this rule in the house when it came to discipline. 3 strikes and you're out. So if a child did something wrong, I learned this from James Dobson. Focus on the family. So when she did something wrong, we had a conversation with her. Second time, the conversation got a little bit more elevated. Third time was, okay, it's time for some discipline. Whether you agree with it or not, we had a little fly swatter with a little paddle on the end. And so what she would do is she would go to her room, and so I would calm down because I'd be angry, and I want to make sure that anytime we do discipline, you don't want to do it in anger. And so I sent her to her room. And so we wait about 10 minutes. It's more torturous for the kids than for us, and they're going to sit there waiting for you to come. And so I walked in her room. And she's looking at me like she's got these big brown eyes, or blue eyes of hers, and she's like looking up at me like this, and she says, "I'm sorry, Daddy." I said, "I know, baby." I said, "But you know what I've got to do? I've got to teach her right from wrong." She said, "Okay." So I come out, I had a little fly swatter. Oh, she's so cute, she's so tiny. So she comes down, she kind of bends over a little bit, and I take the fly swatter, and instead of just like giving it down, I didn't, hold this little tap like that, right? This is my daughter. Tapped her lightly, showing grace and mercy. She stuck her butt out at me and said, "Daddy, that didn't hurt." Needless to say, that fly swatter was curved while the time was coming over. It swung down like this, and she popped right up on her little toes. Tears started welling up in her eyes, and she's like, Daddy, that really hurt. And you know what? Never had to do it again. She learned a lesson, but she jumped up in my arms and she understood that I loved her and cared for her. And she knows that. And she knows that Mom and Dad, and as you all guys do, love your children so very much. But that's her little bit of rebellious spirit. Daniel, we never had to do that with. Well, you just have to look at Daniel and he was disappointed. But Becca's got that little bit of in her. She gets it from me, I know that. And I think that's going to help her greatly in life at times as she kind of goes through. And sometimes we all need that, don't we? Amen? So it's a great thing, but she's a wonderful child. You guys are wonderful. Andrew, Becca, Jeremy, I think you've got bright futures ahead of you. We are so proud of you. I know Joshua's going to do well. Taylor's going to do fantastic in her life too. We have a good group of graduates this year, amen? We've had some fantastic ones last year and a few years before. So this is how we're going to finish this. Kids, I want you to turn around. You're going to kneel at the altar. Parents, you're going to stand behind your kids. Family members, if you want to come up right now and do this, that's fine. You can come on up and lay hands on the child. And we're going to pray a prayer over these wonderful young people. So let's bow our heads. Lord, we just thank you and praise you for this day. Lord, we ask you just to anoint and bless these young people. Lord, I want to thank you for Jeremy. Lord, I want to thank you for his intelligence. Lord, I want to thank you for the things that he does and his Eagle Scout Award and his desire to give back to his community. Lord, I believe he's going to do fantastic things at Frostburg. And I believe you have called him to be a neurologist or a virologist, whatever it is that you've called him to do. Lord, he's going to be successful. Lord, I want to thank you for Andrew. Lord, what an excellent young man who has been raised well and who has been raised to be such a strong young man. Lord, I believe he's going to do fantastic things in the world of finance. Lord, give him encouragement there. Give him the wisdom that he needs. And Lord, that he will go on and continue to do the things that he is. Lord, what a model citizen he sounds. And we thank you for it. Lord, I thank you for Becca. Lord, I thank you for my daughter and the things that you have done through her, the things that she's endured. But Lord, I want to, and for all these three, Lord, pray of anointing of the Holy Spirit upon them. Lord, you would do tremendous things in them. Lord, be with Becca as she goes into a field where she's going to have to deal with the worst of people and sometimes the best of people. And Lord, we ask you just to give her the wisdom and the courage to be always on the position that she's there to help those who are less fortunate and those who are being victimized. And Lord, that she would do that with great joy and great happiness and with great skill. Lord, I thank you for Joshua. Lord, I thank you for who that young man is. And Lord, I thank you for the man that he's going to continue to be. Lord, he has overcome so much. And Lord, he is succeeding in life. And Lord, I thank you for every one of us and all those people in his life who have surrounded him to make him the man he is today. Lord, I thank you for Taylor. Lord, I thank you for her creativity and her heart. Lord, I know that she's going to do tremendous things through Washington College and the business of saving our environment. It's going to be just an awesome thing. Lord, but all these 5 young people, Lord, give them wisdom and give them grace. And let them be the most powerful people they can be. And may their paths be guided by you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys, everybody greet them well, warmly. Good job. Alright, there's some great pictures there. One of my parts of pictures which I enjoy is looking at people's lives, how kids change. And all of us change, do we not? And so those are the things that we have to be prepared for, is change. I cannot believe that my oldest is 18. I cannot believe that she's graduated high school. I cannot believe that she's going to be going to Del Tech, and I can't believe she's going to be a social worker. Our mother's so happy. Becca's had some medical condition. We found out what it is this past week or so, and Becca really wanted to be a cop. She wanted to go shoot and tase people for a living. However, because of the medical condition, she can't be that. So next step is social work, so she can do well with that. But understand that we all change, and we all have things that are happening. And we all know the elephant in the room is that we are transitioning as a congregation, as a pastor. And so most of you all know, I think everybody knows that I'll be here for the next few weeks. And so I kind of want to get it out there. I'll be here until July the 5th, and then July the 12th, I won't. But I'm going to preach a message to you today. A message which I got to speak once before. And I want to share with you that the future for this church and for this community is bright.
Amen.
And I want to impact on you very much today simply this. Because I'm not standing here in a few weeks, it doesn't mean that the church doesn't still exist. The pastor is not the church. The people are the church. The mission of Christ is still the same. People in Bethlehem, Preston, Harmony, Easton, and the areas surrounding need Jesus. This is people in Dover and beyond need Jesus. And so as I speak these words today, I want you to give you encouragement today that things are going to get better. Things are going to be awesome. I believe a great foundation has been laid, and I think the next man who's coming here, or woman, whatever it may be, is going to do tremendous things. But I want to ask you simply this. I want you to pray for your board, your local board of administration. And I'm going to name them specifically. Frank Prettyman, Jen Mangum, Edna Patchett, Charlie McGinnis, Jamie Griffin, and who else? John Davis. I was thinking they're over there looking at. Those are 6 people who have been charged to basically work out who your next pastor is going to be. That board and these men and women are fantastic, and they will choose wisely. And so as you listen to this message today, and graduates, I want you to pay attention to it too, because I believe that this message applies to you. And so as we jump into this, we're going to talk about the power of faith and promise. And so I want you to do me a favor. I want you to grab the book of Numbers. And you're going to go there. It's going to be chapter 26. If you have your Bibles with you, go ahead and find it. Numbers is Old Testament. And you go to chapter 13. And I want to share with you a simple message about faith and promise. And so we're going to begin in the 26th verse of Numbers. And this is the prologue to the story. I want to give you some backstory. What has happened is that Moses has led the Israelite people out of the oppression and the persecution of the Egyptians. He has led them to freedom. They have been broken free, and they've traveled through, and they have seen tremendous things. They've seen God part waters. They've seen God in a pillar of fire protect them. They've seen the Egyptian army, the greatest force known to man at that time, destroyed in their midst. They have seen miraculous after miraculous after miraculous. And what happens is that they get to the edge of Canaan. Now, Canaan is a part of the land, and beyond Canaan into there is what's called the Promised Land. And this is the land given to the Israelites and promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it was the land that they were forced to leave 400 years before because of famine. We only go back and read the story of Joseph. And they come back after 400 years of being in exile. They come to the edge of the border. And God has told them, you're going to go in and take the land back. Now, obviously the residents there of that land are not too happy about that. They want to keep their land. So Moses, who was a very wise leader, a very strong leader, people loved him. You know, they had their moments with him. But Moses comes up with this great idea. He said, I'm going to send one man from every tribe. So there's 12 tribes of Israel. One man to go in and spy on the land and tell us what is there so we are prepared. And now we need to be prepared for things, right? Now, how many of you were prepared to have children? I remember going to the hospital with Beth, and Beth comes out, and then they're like, okay, you get to take her home in 24 hours. And I had a manual for my VCR thicker than the manual they gave me for my kid, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm 27 years old, and I'm like, what do I do? So I researched, and I did as much as I could. This is pre-internet days. But when we go buy stuff and we prepare for things, we make an investment. We want to understand where we go. We don't just walk into a car lot and say, well, I'm just going to see what's there. We research. We decide what kind of car we want, what kind of horsepower, what kind of color, what kind of vehicle. We want to make sure we buy a Ford and not a Chevy, and all those kind of things. We want to do those right things. So Moses is prepared. And so this is how it goes. So in verse 26 it says this. They came back to Moses, so they go in and they come back. They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. Then they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. If you stop right there, man, this is awesome. This is great. The promised land is going to be great. The future's looking great. It's milk and honey. It's everything that we've been told for 400 years. Great stuff, man. We're going to go. It's like the eastern shore of Maryland. It's got watermelons. It's got cantaloupes. It's got chickens. It's the promised land. Now imagine they're at the Bay Bridge, okay? So on the western shore, right? They're at the Bay Bridge. They come all the way from California, and they come across the land, and they're at the Bay Bridge. And then the promised land of eastern shore is here. And so they send the spies. Now, if we stop there, hey, I'm sold. Give me the land, let's go in, let's go do it. That's my personality. Now I want to tell you that originally already been taken care of here. The leader of this group is Joshua. In verse 13, back in Numbers 13, it says that Moses called Joshua. That means he gave him leadership rights. So Joshua becomes very key, and we'll get to that later. But then they say this, because then you have this thing in here. And whenever you read your Bible, whenever you do Bible study or anything like that, whenever you see this word, it is not good. Especially the Old Testament. But, this conjunction. But, the man who had gone up with him said, we are not able to get against the people of them because what? But the people that live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of land, for we can certainly do it. So, they come back on this land and they see all these people, they've suddenly been gripped with something. They've been gripped. Something has changed. They see the fruits of Canaan, but they see the people. And so then you get to this word, it says, but the man who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. Caleb says, shut up. Stop. We can do it. Don't you understand? We've seen God part waves. We've seen God destroy the Egyptians. We've seen God in a pillar of fire. Boy, we can do anything with God in front of us. But the 10 others were like, no, we're afraid. And if you follow along in your outline, this is what happens. It's when fear overwhelms faith. You see, when fear grips us, then the plans of God, which we don't act on in faith, become lost to us, but not to God. Go to the next screen for me, Press. Now let me explain this to you. When fear grips us, then the plans of God, which we don't act on in faith, become lost to us. Listen to what I'm about to say. This is a tough teaching. If God calls you to be something and you don't do it, He will take it away from you. He will raise someone else up to go do it. If God has called you and given you a gift and a talent, and Jesus says, hey, come do this. I want you to be part of this. And He has called you to this, and you refuse to go out of fear and not through faith, what God will do is He will remove that from you and give it to someone else. He will raise another generation up to do the things that you haven't done. Graduates, I want you to pay attention. This becomes very key to you at the end of this message. E.W. Kenyon said these great words. Faith talks in the language of God. Doubt talks in the language of men. Faith talks in the language of God. Doubt talks in the language of men. Understand that faith is what gets us through difficult days. Difficult tasks ahead of us cannot be done by man alone. Doubt raises in, fear raises in, we will fail. If you don't dream big enough that only God can do it through you, then you're not dreaming big enough. If you can do it by yourself, then it's nothing important. You can do big things. We can all do great things by ourselves. But when it is a God dream and a God plan, it has to be faith that we use. The Israelites have gone to the border. They've gone right to the promised land. They've been freed. They've been oppressed. The text then goes on to say that they would try to rebel against Moses, that they tried to decide to go back to Egypt. They were so stuck in their fear over their faith that they were willing to go back to shackles and chains and punishment and oppression and slavery than be free. But understand that God has a plan and He has a promise. And so that's the next part I want, as the story continues. You see, just because we don't do what God says doesn't mean that God's promise still doesn't exist. God still said, we're going to go to the promised land. This is your land. I promised it to you. You're going to enter. This is how God deals with it. Every single last man, woman, and child of that generation who stood at the promised land of Canaan, who refused to be the people of God, to step in faith instead of being in fear, every single last one except for Caleb and Joseph spent the next 40 years walking around the desert and the wilderness, basically telling stories, doing whatever they've got to do. Not one of them is going to enter into the promise of God. So let me make this clear to you. If you stop doing the things of God, if you stop doing the things He has called you to do, He is going to make you circle in the wilderness and you will not see the promise that He had for you. He will raise up another generation. And remember I said earlier, what happened is that He had raised up Joshua to be the leader. And so Moses, at the end of his life, as they come back around again, they come back 40 years later, they circle around, and they come to the land of Canaan, the promised land. Every single one of them had died except the last one was Moses. And Moses writes this beautiful book. It's called a love letter. It's called the book of Deuteronomy. And Moses writes these words in Deuteronomy chapter 34. You don't have to go to it right now. I'm just going to read a passage from it. You can go look at it later. It's a fantastic, fantastic book to read. But in Deuteronomy chapter 34, Moses writes these words. Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab to the top of Pisgah, across from Jericho. There the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead to Dan, all of the Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, then the Geb and the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zor. Then the Lord said to him, this is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it. Understand that part of that text. I promised this to you. God says, I made the promise. Listen to me, folks. When God makes the promise, God fulfills the promise. Though we may fall away from the promise, we may not see the joy of it, God will fulfill his promise. Moses unfortunately made the mistake of equating himself with God, and God punished him for him. And his punishment was not to enter into the promised land. But Moses got to see it, and he looked over it. And in the rest of the text, it says, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. He buried him in Moab in the valley opposite Beth Peor, but to this day no one knows where his grave is. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. The Israelites grieved for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days until the time of weeping and mourning was over. Now here's the key component of this text. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the Spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what the Lord had commanded Moses. Looking along in your sermon outline, when God makes a promise, then God fulfills his promise. God will always raise a leader to fulfill the promise. Listen to me, church. The promise of Bethlehem Wesleyan Church is to enter into the promised land of Preston, Harmony, and the region around, to reach the lost for Jesus Christ. Whether I'm leading you into that, or another man stands here, God's promise is still the same. If you do what I ask, if you lead people into Christ, if you are the church, and you are the people of the book, it doesn't matter who the leader is. I'm the one who's going to be glorified. I'm the one who's going to take care of it, and I will fulfill the promise. The promised land was upon them. Caleb and Joshua were the only two left of that 40 years ago. And in the midst of all this, God says, I'm going to do great things. Andrew Murray said this, that every exhibition of the power of faith was the fruit of a special revelation from God. Our spiritual power depends on God himself speaking those promises to us. There are so many times in the New Testament and the Old Testament where God uses the word promise. I promised to do this. I told you I was going to send someone to come redeem you. That is Christ. I told you I was going to give you that land, and we're about to take over. God's promises are true and accurate. And I want you to understand today, church, because we have to speak this into our lives every day. Because there are moments when our fear overwhelms our faith, and there are some times when the faithful promise of God seems so far away, especially when we're in dark days. But you see, the story of God never ends. And what we have in Joshua, as you follow along, is simply this. When faith overcomes fear. And in the book of Joshua, the very first chapter, you see something laid down which is so glorious and so wonderful. It says these words. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I'm about to give to them, the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot. As I promised Moses, your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. These are the words that Joshua has spoken to. Joshua stands up from this moment, and he has an encounter with the angel of the Lord. And Joshua then leads his people, the Israelites, into the promised land. Whereas before, 40 years ago, they were afraid and they were feared and they had no faith. This time, Joshua raised up, called out into leadership by Moses, called up by God. An angel of the Lord came upon him, anointed him for what it is, filled with the spirit of wisdom, takes his people, they cross over the river into the land, and the rest is history. And they claim everything that God had given them in the promise. Understand this. But there are three things that we need to look at in this text. Simply this. If you want to have strong faith, and you want to do the things that God has called you to be, there are three words you need to be. And they're all in this text. And it's a be word. Be word means it's an action word. This is something you must do. And it's simply these three words. Be strong in the Lord. Be courageous in God. And be obedient. The word of the Lord is our guide and our map to living. It is our guide and our map to the next world as much as this world. But understand what the text says to Joshua. You need to be strong and courageous. Trust me, all of us have fear. Courage is the ability to overcome fear in faith. Courage is the ability to go beyond. So we're going to be strong. We're going to be strong in the Word. We're going to be strong in faith. We're going to be courageous in the Word. We're going to be courageous in our faith. And we must be obedient to what God says. Understand when I say this. As I said it before, I want to remind you, if you won't do it, God will take you away from you and He will give it to someone else. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to end up in heaven one day in front of God and He'll say to me, guess what? I gave you something. I gave you something to do and you didn't do it. I don't want to face that moment. And so when we go into these things, understand that if you got God calling you, God said, hey, I need you to go witness to your neighbor. I need you to go witness to your friend. I need you to go do something in the church. I need you to lead kids ministry, youth ministry, whatever it is. And God is calling to you. You know it's in your heart. You know in your mind it's happening. And you know something is pushing you to it. And you refuse steadfastly to go. And you decide to walk away. Not be part of the church. Not be part of the faith of Christ. If you walk away, do you really think God's not going to stay with you? He's going to walk too. And He's going to find someone else out of the chocolate mouths of babes. Be like little children. God has ordained every single one of us to do great things. The people of Israel saw God do miraculous things and they refused out of fear when they should have had faith. And Caleb and Joshua lead the men of God and the women of God of Israel into the promised land and claim everything. Now they had some issues, yes, they had some struggle, but understand that they were strong and courageous and obedient. Faith is a powerful tool, and when applied with strength, courage, and obedience, it can lead us to the promise that God has for us. Joni Eareckson Tada said these words once. Faith isn't the ability to believe long and far into the misty future. It's simply taking God at His word and taking the next step. Where is your next step? Graduates, listen to me in the next two minutes. Men and women of God and kids, listen to me for the next 2 minutes. Some point in your life, God is going to ask you to take the next step. He's going to ask you to do something powerful in His name. He's asking you to let Him lead you. There's a sign I saw the other day, and it said, I think actually, it's out here. I think Leslie put up, if God is your co-pilot, change seats. We have a tendency to do what? We want to fly the plane that God has for us. But we need to switch seats. We need to put God in the plane, in the seat, and let Him fly it. We're just going to go with it, with faith and without fear. We're going to go because we know the promise that God has. Our next step, there is always a next step in our life. So we're going to end this way. There's a simple prayer I want us to pray together. You've heard me talk about fear, overwhelming faith. Let's not be that. Let us understand that God has a promise for us, and let us understand that faith overcomes fear. I'm going to read you a little stat before we go to this prayer. George Barna's research group just recently did a whole big thing about America and about its state of Christianity. And Christianity is still doing well. Don't worry, it's not going to end tomorrow. But he did say this. If unchurched Americans were their own nation, they would be the 8th largest nation on earth. If unchurched Americans were a nation, they'd be the 8th largest nation on the world. The mission of the church is to reach the unchurched. The mission of the church is not to find other church folk to come to our church. It is to reach the unchurched, to be discipled as a group of people, to be the collective body together, not to be separated or divided, but to be united. understanding this, that they're the 8th largest nation in the world, is those who don't know Christ and unchurched in that nation, what do you think the church of God needs to do? Here's what the problem is people see this, they get panicky, and they become like those at the promised land 40 years earlier. They start freaking out, and they start thinking, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to do that. The people who hate God are more powerful than we are. If you believe that, you need to get a faith check. You need to have so much fear. You need to realize the promise of God. Here's the reality. We can either be the first group of people in Canaan, or we can be the second group. And if God is for us, we need to charge into this place that is called America. And so we're going to leave with this. I want everybody to stand. The praise team is going to come. Graduates, you're about to enter into the world. As my daughter said the other day, I don't know if I'm ready to be a big person now. So you realize how expensive life is going to be. Be strong and be very courageous and be very obedient to where the Lord is leading you. But church, you're about to enter a new era, and it's going to be exciting, it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be wonderful. And it's going to be I just think, such a joy and a pleasure to watch and to be part of, and say that once, you guys have a bright future. Do not be despondent. The promised land awaits you. It's time to enter in. All your neighbors, all your friends, all these people, they need Jesus, and you are the answer for them. We as churches need to do whatever we can. And so as we close today, say this with the heart and the meaning that it needs to be. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Break us, melt us, mold us, and fill us, and use us. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us, empowering us to be all and do all you dream of us being and doing. God has called this church to do something fantastic. To continue the transformation of our community. Amen? And it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a joy. Let's pray. Lord, we just thank you and praise you. You are a mighty God. Lord, let us walk in faith, not in fear. Let us believe in the promise you have for us. And Lord, let us be people of faith who walk to the promised land and take back what is rightfully ours. And Lord, we give you praise and give you glory. And God's people said, amen. All right, church, let's go out with a great song together.